Hello and welcome back to the Nasty Metal Production here at YouTube, and welcome to another Friday review. Today I am getting around to reviewing Hell Unleashed, the fifth and also comeback album from Britain's own Evile, with an E. Alright, this album again, it is pretty much, it's their comeback album, and I'll get into that hopefully into the actual review. But this album was released on April 30th of this year through Napalm Records. So, without further ado, let me get into my review of Hell Unleashed from Evile, spelled with an E. Let's get into it. Alright, so before I really get into any of my overall thoughts on this particular album, you know what I have to do. I have to do a track listing rundown so I can tell you folks what are the songs on this album, how many songs are on this album, and what's the time length for this album. And since we have at least about 9 songs here, it all clocks in at the length of 41 minutes and 45 seconds. So, these 9 songs are beginning with Paralyzed, Gore, Incarcerated, War of Attrition, Disorder, The Thing, 1982, Zombie Apocalypse, Control from Above, finally ending with the title track. So there's your 9 songs. Okay, so the band Evile, I've been aware of these guys for a long time, especially me being when I was really getting into the sort of the more newer thrash metal bands that really was starting to emerge within that, at least that early to mid 2000s. You know, like Toxic Holocaust and Havoc and Merciless Death and Fueled by Fire. You know, they're just to really name you at least some, you know, or Warbringer, those kind of bands. Evile was one of those bands that really emerged amongst these bands, and they were formed all the way back in, actually originally it was 1999 when they were going on the name Metal Militia. I might have fucked up a little bit of that again, Metal Militia, but they've ended up changing their name in 2004 to Evile. Again, spelled with an E. I always kind of pronounce as Evile, but that's probably not really what it's supposed to actually, at least how it's supposed to be said. It's pronounced Evil, but again, they added an E at the end, because I guess it would just be more cooler that way. So, that's the way I guess it's supposed to be pronounced. But again, it's Evile spelled with an E. So they changed it to that, and from there on, when they obviously got signed to I believe it was Earache Records, yes, they, and to, obviously, maybe within that, 2006 to 2007, they released their very first album titled Enter the Grave. And from there, they kind of was beginning to get a lot of, at least recognition in many ways. I mean, they had an EP released in 2004, but it was Enter the Grave that ended up getting them more notoriety. And that's where I guess people started to really kind of compare them to being, you know, a lot of the Bay Area thrash metal bands, for example, probably the big one, Metallica. So from there, they were releasing albums at least within 2009, again, following, Infected Nations. Then finally in 2011 with Five Serpent's Teeth. But I think if I am not mistaken, it was in at least 2009 where they did lose Mike Alexander, who again had passed away in 2009. So I know I'm kind of fucking her up a little bit on the continuity of history, but still, Five Serpent's Teeth was their first album after losing Mike Alexander. Then in 2013, they follow up with Skull, and that would have been the final album they had released. So it really was uncertain what was going to happen to Evile. So I guess you can say 8 years later, here we are with Hell Unleashed. So that's why this is considered at times a comeback album for these guys, because it's been 8 years since they had released Skull. So this is their brand new one, and it's their first one on Napalm Records. And again, I've been familiar with these guys. I've heard some of their stuff in the past, but I really be honest with you, none of it really completely, it didn't make me go crazy, but I didn't find it nearly bad or at all. It was still listenable. I still enjoyed it, but nothing really made me go like, this is fucking awesome, that's where I'm kind of at with Hell Unleashed. For some reason, this album might have changed my mind. I was not expecting to really enjoy Hell Unleashed this much. I think the reason why this album is why I've enjoyed this album a lot more than compared to any of the other previous albums from these guys' catalog is that this is probably the most less Metallica or Bay Area sounding thrash metal band, I think, or at least album that these guys have released. This one might be the heaviest that these guys have released so far. Again, you can definitely hear a little bit of that Bay Area sound, more some maybe the heaviest shit, maybe from like Forbidden, maybe. But at the same time, since these guys are Britain, I hear more comparisons, especially the heavier stuff, from maybe Onslaught or another band that comes to mind too would be Zentrix, or Slammer. But it's heavier than that. Instead, it kind of brings in more of an Exodus and Slayer sort of vibes onto this album here, and maybe a bit of the Ultraviolence from Death Angel, when at least that was probably some of the heaviest shit Death Angel released. So you do get at least some comparisons to various bands, but it's not like Metallica worship. This comes off a little bit more. Again, you can say that the band's starting to kind of go more of a more heavier direction. They're kind of to remove themselves away from those comparisons, and I think they did a fine job of this one. I think that's why one of the main reasons why I seem to really like the sound more than any of the previous ones. It just seems to have more of a ferocious and more feral vibe to this one. It comes in terms of the attitude of this one. You can tell that these guys are definitely trying to really I guess they say maybe slightly reinvent themselves. Again, it's their comeback album, and they seem to be really wanting to prove something. And I think that they're really showing that on Hell Unleashed. At least that's how I feel. So, I mean, just from the beginning song of Paralyzed, you're pretty much are already strapped into into one thrill ride. It's the best way I can describe it. A straight up ferocious thrill ride, where it throws no punches. It doesn't want to completely slow down all the time. I mean, you get some slower parts in this album, but for the most part, this is a thrill ride that doesn't have barely any breaks. So it shows no mercy in its awakening, and that's just the best way. Again, just from Paralyzed all the way to at least to the title track that ends the album, again to the very last song, it is just a no thrills thrill ride, and that's no frills thrill ride. Basically, it is just fucking manic throughout, and that's the best. It wasn't like that with all the previous sounds. The previous sounds, you can tell they always kind of slowed things down, even though they usually would add in a lot of cool riffs. Just that not everything was this breakneck speed. This is the first time where I think since maybe the first sound where they sounded this sort of feral sounding, and I think it's one of the reasons why it comes off so manic and crazy and shit. And I actually kind of dig that. But again, that's not for every single song, because of a song like, for example, Incarcerated. There's one song where they kind of begin to slow down a little bit. I mean, again, the first two songs were just at rapid pacing, just straight up machine gun riffs, and just all at fucking breakneck speed. That was pretty much at least the overall vibe for the first two songs on the album. Again, Paralyzed and Gore. But Incarcerated, they start to slow things down a bit, but that only lasts for at least through that sort of beginning moments of the song. And it only lasts maybe for like a minute maybe before it's back into more of the same gear that it's been in for the first two. Again, it's all in high gear. And from there on into, of course, the rest of the next couple of songs, again, like War of Attrition, Disorder, The Thing, 1982, which is of course, the title of the song is explanatory. It's obviously a song based around, or just inspired by, basically the John Carpenter film of the same name. So it's very cool. I love that movie. It is one of my favorite horror movies and one of my favorite John Carpenter films anyway. So it's really cool to see a band like this really pay tribute to one of my favorite horror movies, and I think they do a good job capturing the overall essence and the vibe of The Thing. So there we go. Very cool. And then, of course, probably the first time I think you'll ever hear a thrash metal band actually cover a song from the death metal band Mortician. Which, again, it's Zombie Apocalypse. I've reviewed something on this channel anyways that from at least a release from a band where they actually covered this same exact song. I believe it was Grandma they went by, and they covered Zombie Apocalypse, and that was a straight up sort of death metal kind of band. But this is a straight up thrash metal band, and they're covering this exact song, and they put their own twists, their own just their overall flavor onto this particular track. So they turn what was probably one of the most crazy, most manic death metal songs and turn it into more of a blistering thrash metal number. And it's really cool, it's interesting, and again, it really does show that the band is trying to remove themselves away from those Bay Area sort of Metallica comparisons. They're really trying to remove themselves from that, and I think with the song like their cover of Mortician Zombie Apocalypse, I think they're out to prove that, and I think it shows that, so it's very cool. Again, going to Control from Above, again, it's probably this time where they're kind of starting to take things down a notch a little bit again, since at least Incarcerated, but again, this song does go back to being more straight up ferocious, in-your-face, thrill-ride thrash metal, and then, of course, into the final song, the title track, and that's where we end things. This is also the first album for guitar player Adam Smith, and I think he does a great job filling in his part. Everything sounds tight on this album. The production work is, again, it's fucking tight, it's crisp, it's warm, and again, it makes everything sound great. And I do have to also say that Old Drake sounds great on this one. He's probably a lot more deeper, more aggressive sounding on the sound than I think he has sounded on some of the past albums. So again, you get a more of an aggressive feel on this one. And again, these guys, I think Old Drake and Co. are really out here, that they've come back to kind of prove something in a way. It feels like they're out to kind of show people that they are more than just a band that's trying to ape the classic sounds of, let's say, Metallica or even Zentrix or whatnot. Some of their old, at least their British counterparts, they're not trying to really too much want to sound like that sort of late 80s period thrash metal stuff. They want to try and show that they are more than that, and I think the sound kind of proves that. So I think it's a solid album, and it's really, I would say, the one album that's really kind of won me over for these guys. So it's a solid album from start to finish, so there we go. There it is, folks. There's my overall thoughts on Hell Unleashed, the 5th and, of course, comeback album from Evile. And my rating, since I wrote it down, I'm giving a 9.08 out of 10. Again, very high rating. Actually, you know what? It wasn't a 0.8. It's a 9.98 out of 10. So close to a 10. This is a strong, solid album from these guys. And for a comeback, I think that this was a solid comeback for Evile. I think they really are out to show something. They're out to prove something. And I think they really are showing that on this one. It comes off that way. I think it's a very solid album from these guys. Probably some of the best stuff they've done maybe in a long time. Or it's probably the best stuff I think they've done in general. In my opinion, I say. Okay? So it's a solid album from start to finish, and I really do like it. I think it's one of some of the finest thrash metal band albums that come out this year. I know some may have a different opinion, but that's fine. Everyone's got a different opinion, and that's cool. And if you have a different opinion, you can post that in the comments section below. But if you have at least an opinion that might be similar to mine, you can post that in the comments section below. Again, it's all about whether or not, again, up to you if you want to post anything positive or negative. Again, it's all meant to be posted in the comment section below, so I'm very curious. So with that, If you haven't heard this album and you haven't really been keeping up with whatever Evil do, or if you probably are surprised that they've come back with a brand new album, I say check it out and see if you like it. If you don't, again, let me know. So with that, hope all of you enjoyed. This is Every Thrasher saying I'm out, and I'll see y'all later. Take care, everyone.